It's gonna go.
It says you're recording the call.
Okay, it's going. Okay, I'm president of Collinwood. Jules states, joined by the author of the Dark Shadows Day book, Patrick McCray. How are you, man?
I am. I'm just great. I am. Needless to say, I am better than the number of recent celebrities who all died in what feels like a horrible spree of future Oscar montage sadness. One after I've got Bob Saget, Betty White, who saw that coming, and then who was the other one? There was somebody who
the guy from In the Heat of the Night movie.
Oh, Sidney Poitier, the great. Yeah, so it's been rough, but I'm okay. Yeah, why not? I'm doing fine. I think I got a good day book in me for tomorrow. It's one I've written before, which I'm getting into. It didn't get mentioned, but the one that I did last week was a repeat. It was part of the Time Trap series, and it was a different approach on that. And then this is, and tomorrow, or I guess today, in about a half hour, is the anniversary, I think, of 1195. It's the episode where Angelique gets her powers taken away by Judah Zachary, who just fully comes out of the closet as maniacally evil to her. And meanwhile, James Storm, is just cutting a rug. And at the same time, Quentin and Desmond go to the chopping block. Oh. And they're like, oh, they came a little early. Well, who's going to complain? And it's like Bo and Luke Duke, just two good old boys. And Selby is never more Southern than he is in that one. And they're just like, it's like the Rat Pack. Swinging down Las Vegas Boulevard, which I think I said in the day book. It's a great episode. It's really worth going back and rewatching. So I'm getting into a cycle now where I'm completely divorced us from what this is supposed to be about. But the other thing is I'm getting into a cycle now where there are a handful of episodes that I really want to write about that I haven't gotten to, usually because they fall at some time of year where just stuff's going on. Stuff about Petofi inhabiting David or Daniel or Durwood or Darren or Jameson. Yeah. Stuff in there. And, the episode where Jameson officially, really gives it to Quentin. Yeah. And my whole theory that his whole thing is, Beth, Elizabeth, that there's parallels and so on. But when I'm not doing that, I come across episodes that are still really important, that were important enough for me to write about, for a reason. And we're making progress on Daybook Part 2. So that's good. That's coming along. It went through a new round of proofing with an incredible guy, a member of the Baker Street Irregulars, like one of the big Sherlockians in the country. This guy named Davey Morrell, who is joining Terry Boyles, who's fantastic. She's been sort of proofing it, and she's been kind of a Jiminy Cricket on Part 2, and gosh, she's been great. They've both been terrific. So I've been working on that, and I've been thinking that it was right around now, 29 years ago, 30 years ago, something like that. 1991. How many years ago was that?
Let's see. 91. Let's see. 91, 2001, it would be 10.
It was a bunch of years ago.
Yeah, a lot of years.
Right around the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And as a commercial tie-in with the Gulf War, we got Dark Shadows 1991.
We got the revival.
And I think you should have a podcast and talk some sense about it.
So we are here to discuss the 1991 Dark Shadows revival. Dan Curtis brings Dark Shadows back to television. Ben Cross is Barnabas. Barbara Steele. You have so many characters. What did you think of the 91 revival? What were your thoughts on this?
That's a big question. Overall positive. Overall, very, very, very positive. Just like Star Trek: The Next Generation was sort of my Star Trek, as opposed to my father's Star Trek, because it was something that completely came into existence during my lifetime and during my awareness, where I could track it and kind of be a conscious part of it from the beginning. This was my Dark Shadows at the time, in that it was the big, prestigious, really fully funded sort of masterpiece theater version that came about in my lifetime. It was the first show that I had really wanted to see happen for years, and then there it was. And Ben Cross, I think, won an Oscar or something for Chariots of Fire. He was certainly in a movie that had memorable music. You have Ben Cross as a serious, Patrick Stewartian Barnabas, and Gene Simmons, who looks totally different when you take off the black and white makeup and the armor, and not there with Ace Frehley and the other members of her band. But different Gene Simmons. But that you got Gene Simmons from Blue Lagoon, who I hope around the set they called the creature from the Blue Lagoon. You got Stephen Girish, who's amazing as Joshua, and Dave. I guess he's playing Dave Woodard, and I think while it was clear that Curtis, I hate to say this, but I think it became clear that there were aspects of Dark Shadows that I don't think he got because of certain decisions he made, or he didn't appreciate fully. But it was good to see him have all of these tools at his disposal, and for every decision he made that kind of went like that, he made other decisions that I think got things better in some places. So overall, 2 thumbs up. I remember I lived in California at the time, so it was very difficult to follow like it was for people on the East Coast, but at least we had some warning. And I remember the attacks on Israel and things being postponed. I think that happened in the 3rd or 4th episode, and then it happened again, which makes me think that the Gulf War was partially funded by ABC or CBS, specifically to create trouble so people wouldn't see Dark Shadows. I'm kidding. But it really was a bad thing. And I wish that they had just re-aired it. It got better ratings, apparently, than Twin Peaks. And I remember when it first came out, it was a sensation. And it was sponsored by Domino's, because my videotapes still have all the original ads. Nice. So, and specifically, we were told to avoid the Noid.
Here's the thing. When I watched this, Ben Cross's Barnabas scared the hell out of me. Did he? He did.
Yeah.
I mean, this was... I will give Ben Cross a lot of credit, because a lot of actors, when you're playing a character who's so legacied because the actor who played him made him and then some, Barnabas is a big name, and Jonathan Frid is amazing. He is when I hear Barnabas, I think Jonathan Frid.
Sure.
And I'll give Ben Cross, the devil his due, all the credit in the world, because he did not play Barnabas the way Jonathan did. He played it his own way, which I loved.
I think some of that probably was due to his natural compass. I think part of it was due to the direction. I think part of it was due to the way that Barnabas was being described at the time,
Yeah.
Which he played a great character named Barnabas.
Yep.
I'm not sure he played a great Barnabas. But here's the deal. Physically, Cross has a very different presence than Jonathan Frid.
Yep.
And I don't even know if Jonathan Frid watched the show, but I think Frid could certainly admire one thing about him, and that is that he's a stage actor, and so they both come from worlds where people are playing the same part every few, they're both playing the same part, but every few years. So it's like, okay, this year it's your Henry V. 2 years from now it'll be Shatner's Henry V. And so the idea of very individualistic takes on those roles is something that they're familiar with. My issue with the Cross Barnabas, because I just want to get it out of the way, for one thing, he's terrific. Mm-hmm. That's not my issue is, and I think the issue that exists with the Cross Barnabas has to do with Dan Curtis and the writers and the directors, and people like Sam Hall who know nothing about Dark Shadows. But seriously, I mean, it surprises me a little bit because people who know it so well missed one specific thing that makes Barnabas Barnabas. Fear.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He is a guy way out of his element, who spends a lot of time denying that he's out of his element, but he is absolutely scared shitless. And it really, that was a humanizing element that got lost in the turtleneck, in all of the smoothness, in all of the kind of Rico Suave way that he approached the part. And what we lost was the neuroticism. And Ben Cross, from everything I've seen and heard, was a profoundly funny guy.
Yeah.
He was just a funny guy. And I think if Cross had that pointed out to him, or had been given permission to do it, either by the directors in the script, we would have gotten something that would have been much more of the essence of Barnabas.
There's scenes too, to your point, that are perfectly where he's not afraid. He's more like when you see Angelique's ghost in the old house and Barnabas is sitting in the chair and Dr. Hoffman's like, "What was that?" And he said, "That, my dear, was Angelique, the witch." And he says it with such a cool tone, but such a relaxed tone of, he doesn't show the fear like you're describing. He's just, matter of fact, that's Angelique. Yeah. And there's the end too, the end of the series, when Victoria comes back and they don't say nothing to each other, but they look at each other like he knows, she knows that he's a vampire, and he's not. It's such a cold look he gives of, it's not fear, it's this
is what I would have done in that shot.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a great season cliffhanger.
Yep.
It was also a depressing season cliffhanger because we knew the show was over.
Yeah.
And what for you, besides Ben Cross, were the best elements of that show?
I know they're taking characters who have the namesake of the characters, Victoria, Barnabas, Maggie. But what I really love about the revival is they're giving these characters a fresh coat of paint. Maggie is a medium. She also, and here's the thing, we would have never seen this in the original. Maggie is sleeping with Roger. And I think that,
There's a lot of reasons we wouldn't have seen that.
right. And I love the fact that Joanna Goings is Victoria Winters. She is the reincarnation of Josette. They do take that and sort of apply that here instead
Well,
of,
they
you know,
know what the casting and the story's going to be before they do it, so it helps, you know.
right, right. But I love the fact that they're giving these characters this fresh coat of paint. Now, my big overall issue with the revival is they're relying on these familiar names and they're not adding any new characters. They're not creating any brand new characters.
Like, the Dark Shadows has so many characters.
Yep.
I don't know if is there really room at this point? Maybe, but my other thinking on that, because I've thought about the same thing, um, is I only have so many hours in my life. Why do I want to watch a new character in the middle of my Dark Shadows when there are these other characters that they could drag back in and make part of it? I think it's almost an opportunity to. I mean, I see your point, to mix characters in where we didn't see them. So we have Eric Lang as the doctor in the hospital who's not going to go, for another season or two, but he's there, and suddenly he's interacting with this storyline, things like that.
I think too they could have had like you said, an Eric Lang maybe as a rival psychologist to Julia, a rival doctor even. They sort of they kill Dave Woodard again in a revival.
And did you want some Stokes? Because I wanted some Stokes.
Yes.
Really missed the Thayer David action.
Yeah, they could have had a Professor Stokes in the revival, and they just don't. They don't have a Professor Stokes. They do have an Angelique, and I do love Angelique's portrayal in the revival. I think it's really good. I love that they actually sex up the Barnabas and Angelique relationship. It's my wife described this to me beautifully when I watched the original series. When she watches Jonathan Frid and Laura Parker as Barnabas and Angelique, when Angelique first walks in the door, she goes, "You can tell they fucked," and she's meaning Barnabas and Angelique.
Yeah.
But I agree, but with the revival, they actually do that. They actually do sort of sex up their relationship. Which,
F word.
yeah,
Wow, that's a first. Okay, keep going. Keep going.
I'm sorry, but
No, fine. I looked it up.
but they do a good job of sexing up their relationship, and they do a good job of building the tension of Angelique wanting Barnabas with 1795. It was really, really good. The acting was great in the revival.
The acting is very strong.
Yeah.
All across the board. It is a little weird now to think that most of the original series actors, or a lot of the younger generation original series actors, were my age or younger when they did this revival. And suddenly they don't seem so long in the tooth anymore. I'm kind of wondering, well, where are they? Because if you look at them at the time, they look great.
Yeah.
Not that they would necessarily be playing their old parts, but it's tough to talk about the actors in the new series sometimes, because as ludicrous as this sounds, I feel vaguely disloyal. I feel like, if I say something good about this person, then I'll feel like I'm betraying that person, and that's silly. That's not the case. But okay, so we talked about I can't remember her name. The woman who played Angelique.
I think her name's
She's in Without a Clue.
yeah.
Like I said, Anthony.
Yes, yes. Lisa Anthony.
They got stolen from me. It's true. They did. My house got broken into in California. And they stole an Angelique wristwatch. So somewhere it's out there.
Ooh.
Around, San Bernardino. It's like the coin. It's like the John Wick coin. Isn't he like after a coin or something? I haven't seen those movies. Who else did you like in it specifically? Name names.
Ellie Poget's Maggie Evans was good. I loved Michael T. Weiss's Joe Haskell was interesting.
Okay. Bang. Right on the money. Yeah, what an actor.
Yep.
You have to get somebody of Michael Weiss's outstanding good qualities in every regard to make it okay, because Joel Crothers is such a great actor and such a freaking saint that you have to be as good as Michael Weiss to make me feel like I'm not being mean to Joel Crothers by saying he's just as good. He's different, but he's just great.
He was really, really good. I mean, I watched him in The Pretender, the series he became known for, but when I watched him in The Revival, I'm thinking, man, and what shocked me most was they kill his Joe Haskell. It's like,
I wonder what they were planning to do to put in that character's place, because you take one of your best actors and one of your biggest heartthrobs,
right?
You completely get rid of him for future seasons.
What did you think of Joanna Goings as Victoria Winters?
I thought she was terrific. This is the part where I'm real uncomfortable, and I think it has to do with this truss I'm wearing, but also that you can see. The thing that makes me uncomfortable is that she's very good.
Yeah.
And there's one mistake they make where it's the scene with the rat, where he presents her with the rat, and I really wanted to see her deal with it like, oh, well, this is this genus and species, and if you notice, this and this is, she treats it with a real cool sense of science. She's a New York girl, and it's no longer the era of eek, a mouse, and the woman's stool and the mice are running around, which happened to me. I'm terrified of the darn things. They can run up the walls. They're really mean. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. Joanna Going's very good, and Alexander Moltke has that regal quality, because I was like a Danish member of the Duchess or something, and she has the benefit of being the first.
Mm-hmm.
She has the challenge of having scripts that are written for a 1960s ingenue, which means, they're not going to be the dean of the Department of Rocket Science. And she has to stand around and say she doesn't understand a bunch. And so I think it's a very, in some ways, it's an unfair comparison, because there is a comparison. When we say Joanna Going's great, Victoria Winters, you're immediately in comparison country. And is she better? I can't say, because it's almost like they're playing different characters in different eras, with one character much more capable of taking action. And Vicky has more to do. On Dark Shadows, the original, first Maggie's Josette, and then it's like, oh, wait, Alexandra's our lead. So she's kind of going to have the spirit of Josette, which is just, it makes Barnabas seem like even more on the rebound than ever. Right. And, oh, no, this one's Josette, kind of, even though she doesn't look like, but it'll work out, don't worry. And so, Alexander Moltke never got the benefit of playing any kind of clarity of who she is. She just went to the graveyard and was sad, around That's Grave a bunch. But Joanna Going had the benefit of, yes, she is the reincarnation. This is all written about her. Then she gets to do the twin thing when they go to 1795.
Yep.
And that, I think, was handled really well.
Yep.
When they pulled that one, that was the biggest surprise in the show for me when they pulled that one off. So the call's coming from inside the house, Jewel. So I thought that was outstanding. But you talk about Joanna Going, but then I want to talk about my two people who I'm big on.
I think the biggest, if somebody were to ask me who's the better Victoria winners, I'd say, well, you have to look at the fact that Alexandra's Victoria Winners isn't Joanna Goings' Victoria Winners.
She's not.
Alexandra's Victoria Winners is, yes, the only similarity is they're from New York and they're both orphans.
Yeah.
But from that, they're completely different. You have Alexandra House, who's not only searching for who her parents are, but she's not playing the reincarnation of Josette. Now, the one thing I will say that Alexandra's Victoria Winners did is she does sort of try to make a connection with Josette because Josette saves her from Matthew Morgan. And, that's something you sort of, where they plant the seeds is Victoria Collins? That's sort of where, they're playing.
That actually has a dark quality to it because that suggests that if she's not a Collins,
right,
Josette would have said, "Yeah, I'm gonna hit the tanning bed. I'll be. You're on your own."
Right. I'm not saving you from Matthew Morgan. Yeah. Right. With Joanna Goings, they're telling you up front, this woman is Josette. She is the reincarnation. They're to me, they sort of telegraphed that a bit prior to 1795. I felt with the revival. But
they knew what was going to happen. They had everything planned out.
Right. With the original series, they didn't really plan stuff out as you and I have talked about.
Well, they did, but it was, how do we get like 5 hours of storyline to stretch over 5 weeks? Right.
So I'll always point to the original, but I'll say this: Joanna Goings was amazing for one season.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest takeaway I'll say is when David did something to Victoria Winners, the original Victoria Winners, Alexandra House, she said about how terrified she was of David. So they gave that connection. With the 91 revival, I do feel they should have sort of given Joanna something smarter to do and say when it came to David. I think one of the best potential Victoria Winners was the 04 unaired pilot.
I love that pilot. Except last shot and last line.
Yep.
That pilot.
That Victoria Winners had a lot of potential because she confronted David. Okay, first one, I'll let go. Next one.
Oh, is that in the tub?
Yep.
The moment? Yeah.
Yep. That one had the best potential to be the best Victoria Winners ever. And we only got an unaired pilot, unfortunately. So, yeah. But go ahead.
Well, for one thing, let's make this clear. The woman in the 2004 pilot is technically the Pierce Brosnan of Victoria Winners. Alexander Mulkey's the Sean Connery.
Yep.
And Betsy Durkin is the George Lazenby.
Yes.
And Carolyn Groves is Roger Moore.
Yeah.
It's been said many times. And then Joanna Going is Timothy Dalton, which makes sense. And then you've got whoever she was in 2004, and she was the Dalton, and then of course Bella Heathcote. You can't say the name without thinking of the rugged Daniel Craig. So that's my take. So the actors that I really like in the show, and it makes people furious sometimes when I voiced this opinion. I think Jim Fife is a revelation.
Yes.
I think Jim Fife is a god who walks. He is such a wonderfully human, schlubbish F up of Willie Loomis, quite calculatedly. While there are aspects of him that completely defy any realistic, connection to anything, he is exactly the person who needs Barnabas Collins in his life.
Yep.
And Barnabas is a man who really needs unconditional love. And Willie is someone who has existed in such a harsh, unpleasant world and has become harsh and unpleasant as a result that he responds to that. And so Jim Fife, without taking 5 bullets in the back, managed to get a lot of John Carlin's arc in there much faster. And I think I'm very affectionate towards how he relates to him. And you can tell that after a couple episodes, it's not the bite. It's just, yeah, I'm his amanuensis. And that it's clear that Barnabas is having fun at his expense. There are a lot of places where Barnabas is pretty amused by him. But Barnabas keeps him around because I think, Barnabas knows he can trust him. And Barnabas likes him. And it has much more of that Don Quixote Sancho Panza quality. Then they make the masterstroke of the character Ben Stokes being his manservant, his really competent, confident manservant. And suddenly, well, of course, Barnabas is going to take care of the dissident of his guy. I mean, that's just what you do. And I think Jim Fife showed so much. It's very rare that you find a great, big, energetic, shameless, wild performance like that with so much precision and discipline and dignity at the same time. And I just can't say enough good things about Jim Fife. So that's my Jim Fife thought. You probably have some. And then I want to go for who I think's the biggie, who I think just steals the show.
Jim Fife's Willie Loomis is really fascinating. They make him related to Mrs. Johnson. So that instead of using Harry Johnson, who I don't even really think is Mrs. Johnson's son, I think he's just a spy. But I think that I love Jim Fay's, the fact that they have that connection. And again, another character they give a great fresh coat of paint to, Willie Loomis. And he does the stuttering. He just... The connection with Barnabas is so good. Him and Ben Cross's chemistry is great. They don't miss a beat with each other at all. And I'm not saying John Carlin and Jonathan Frid did. No, they never did to me. But the revival is not something people should sleep on, and that's one of the things when you go back and you look what was a gold standard. I would definitely say Ben Cross and Jim Fay's chemistry was just great.
I don't think that you can really judge Ben Cross's performance without putting it in the context of Jim Fife and what that allowed him to do and what that brought out in him. I just absolutely astounded. I got a funny story I'll tell you about him in a little bit. But my number one, the performer who I think had the most genuine star power, and I really mean this, the one that I am as upset about not going on to have a big, great, big, sloppy Hollywood career. The likes, the same sort of, fire that burns in me about the original series actors, not always necessarily having Hollywood respect their talents. And that's Barbara Blackburn.
Yeah.
I'm pretty tough about actors, I think. I mean, I don't, voice it that often, but I don't get like gaga for actors as much as I'm sure they would like. But I think the Barbara Blackburn has so much intelligence and so much playfulness, and is willing to do what Julia Louis-Dreyfus is willing to do, and that is be a beautiful woman willing to make a fool of herself as Millicent. And she is, I think, a very profoundly erotic presence, but that comes as much from what's up here, that there is so much intelligence and grace and just a sense of decadence to who she is and what she brings to the show. And I think one of the reasons I don't watch it more often is that I just get pissed off when I think, okay, she's out there somewhere. I think she's married to the descendant of William Tuttle, or somebody. There can't be that many Tuttles out there. The makeup artist who did Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe. She's married to a Tuttle. I know that because she goes by the name. For Collinsport Historical, I did my best to try and track her down for an interview, and it never really panned out. I think the show was very lucky to find her. And, a lot of people leave Hollywood on their own steam. They've just had it. So I don't quite know what happened there, but she's transcendent. I love her.
Okay, I know we don't get a season 2, but let's play What If We Did.
Okay.
What would you have wanted to see in a season 2 for the revival?
Okay, well, here's the deal. You've got to assume you're not going to get a season 3. You always have. There's not another season. So you got to think, what's our next big gun? Our next big gun is Quentin.
Right.
I know that, well, the rumor I've heard is, I've heard 2 rumors. One is that they were just going to go ahead and hire David Selby. Yeah. And that caused a little bit of friction. And I'm not sure Selby was going to do it. I don't know. But that was one of the talks. He was he was like the only original series actor that up to that point Dan had approached. And that just has a kind of cruelty to it that from what I hear, they were going to get Adrian Paul. Yeah. And that's not an actor I'm particularly interested in. He's fine, but I've never watched Highlander or anything. Right. A little bit, but for Roger Daltrey. And so I'm almost kind of glad they didn't. Adrian Paul reminds me of that guy they wrote into the A-Team in the last season, who was like the mechanic and had the ponytail and the black leather vest, and someone just was like, So I think Quentin. I think definitely Quentin. I don't think you would have gotten an Adam. You might have gotten an Eve.
Yep.
Just to go straight for the sex appeal, but I think it would have centered around Quentin and another time travel episode. Now with Barnabas going back in time to deal with Quentin, and so I think they probably would have done half season, half in the present, half in 1897. But that's what I would have done, assuming that there would have been nothing else. And then if there had been a third season where I really would have contemplated wrapping it up, I would have had both Barnabas and Quentin having to go back to 1840 to deal with Judah Zachary, and kind of the two destinies of the two men kind of finally converging. And we would have found out, somewhere in the second season, that Judah Zachary would have been pulling the strings on various stuff that had gone on. And then at that point, if you go to a fourth season, you got kind of a clean slate and give the audience something new. What about you?
Well, before I give you mine, who would you have cast as Quentin? I know who I would have.
Oh, back then, You talk a little bit. I'm going to think about it,
Okay.
and I'll get back with you.
Okay. Yes, I would have had Quentin, but Quentin would have been at the end of season two. Season two for the revival would have been the Phoenix. And I would have casted Gillian Anderson to play the Phoenix. Um, I would have had her be the season two would have been the Phoenix, would have been Barnabas. And now, how would I have handled the secret of Barnabas and Victoria knowing? Every time they get together, there's sort of a silence between the two. At least the first episode, but the second episode, she confronts him head on. Like she goes up to him, like, "God damn it, you're a vampire. You murdered those people." And this is sort of where you've talked about fear. This is where Ben Cross would have showed that finally,
Mm-hmm.
where he would have been, I didn't want to. I didn't have a choice. What was I supposed to do? And he's, for the first time, he has a choice to whether to actually be the human he once was,
Mm-hmm.
not literally, mind you, but show that emotion. And he makes that choice in the season, and he literally now has to defend his family, not just against the Phoenix, but Angelique's ghost inhabiting Maggie's body. Is, again, there would have been two presences.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
by the end, Quentin would have showed up to Collinsport, and my choice to play him. When I think of Quentin, I think of the ultimate wild child. So my choice would have been Roddy Piper.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Why not? Sure. Yeah, that's fun. I like that. I like that. I don't really know what young actors were on the scene at the time, without looking, with hindsight, and being able to cast somebody with that. I think with both Jonathan Frid and David Selby, Dan Curtis just stumbled on something truly extraordinary. So with the character of Quentin, you have to be able to cast several things. You have to be able to cast someone who is uh, just, gosh darn interesting and commanding without saying a word.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Someone who is physically really good. And those are qualities that often don't come to an actor until they're in their 40s or 50s. David Selby, I think, was 27. So, number one. Number two, charming SOB. I
Yeah.
mean, someone that just does horrible things, but you just want him to be your friend so badly because he seems like such a fun guy and he seems like someone who genuinely likes people that you're kind of willing to forgive all the other stuff. And when he says, "You're still beautiful, Beth," that we believe it, his first words. So you've got to have that guy. You then have to have a tremendous sense of native intelligence because Barnabas is a hell of an intellectual. Quentin's not, but my God, Quentin has studied intellectuals
Yeah.
and can pass. But more than that, Quentin has such an intuitive sense of people and right and wrong that you have to have a really, really, really brilliant performer in that. And so then the final thing, so then two other final things. You have to have a guy who then remains interesting after he becomes this voice of reason.
Mm-hmm.
And after he has his great awakening and goes through his tremendous depression and all of that. So you got to be able to have that. And then finally, you have to have a kick-ass Count Petofi.
Yep.
Because he spends, I think, nearly a month of 1897 as the Count. He spends several weeks.
Yeah.
And he's marvelous. So I'm thinking Carrot Top, Emo Phillips. Maybe they would have been able to do it. Gallagher, not Gallagher's brother Gallagher, but the real Gallagher, maybe.
Yeah.
You would have taken the hair down and made mutton chops out of it. I don't know. There's maybe Billy Campbell.
Mm.
Do you remember him? He's the Rocketeer.
Yes.
I think he's the Rocketeer, and he's the son of actor William Campbell, who played Trelane, Squire of Gothos. But I also think that they might have gone for a name, for a really, really, really big name to play the part for the sake of ratings.
I just thought of somebody.
Okay.
And he was alive at the time. He could have did the role of Quentin. Brandon Lee.
Yeah, Brandon Lee. Sure.
You know?
Yeah. I'm not that familiar with. I mean, I know who he is and how he left us, but I don't know that much more about him.
Every film I've seen him in, I've been impressed. Like, there's a movie he did with Dolph Lundgren that it's very action oriented. I forget what it's called right off the top of my head, but he's really good in it. So, but I will say this, that Brandon Lee easily did Quentin. He had a presence about him. He could talk, he had that sex appeal. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a character, we've talked about Patofi a bit. Is there a character you wish we would have seen in the revival in the first season?
Well, Frank Garner, of course. You don't know. Okay. Yeah, Professor Stokes.
Yep.
He ties the room together. He's part of the team.
Yep.
Because Julia is not really an occult specialist, although she can kind of get into it. Mm-hmm. But Professor Stokes, bring that guy in, especially when Barnabas is no longer the bad guy. You don't need somebody tattling on Barnabas. You need somebody Barnabas can go to who will tattle on somebody else. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, you talk about your second season. I know you're big on the Phoenix. That's fine. But guess who shows up for revenge and to get Angelique's soul out of Maggie's body? Oh, this is what you do. Nicholas Blair shows up and is working with Dr. Lang, and you have this body that's going to be Adam, that he's going to transfer Barnabas's brains into, because you make the body of Adam some love interest who's been written in for Victoria Winters to have, and then he dies or disappears or something. Well, they never find the body. She's going to get him back, and it's going to have Barnabas's essence in there. And so this is how Barnabas is going to deal with the fact that she knows he's a vampire and so on and so forth. However, and maybe it even temporarily works, and you wonder, is Ben Cross going to be back? It gives Ben Cross a little bit of a vacation, but you got to do it with the sense of Ben Cross will probably be back. This isn't a permanent thing, but his brain goes in there. But the whole idea is that Angelique is going to be, he has this Angelique clone that's kind of in torpor, and they're going to take the essence of Angelique out of Maggie for the life force, and thus Angelique is back, and now Angelique's kind of ticked off because Barnabas doesn't look like Barnabas, and so now she's going against Nicholas Blair, trying to get the Barnabas, body back and get Adam back into that's wacky, but I actually think it's pretty good story.
I like that.
Because it just takes the building blocks, but it puts them together in a kind of a way like, Monk's The Scream.
A character they could have had too, to have Victoria have a love interest, they could have had a Burke Devlin maybe arrive and that be her love interest, and that could be sort of where they use his body in a way.
Well, yeah, and well, if Burke suspects that Roger offed Laura,
Yeah.
that's why he has come back for revenge.
Yeah.
Because also David's growing up, and David looks a little bit more like Burke than Roger,
Yeah.
which is why Roger's so weird. Then this gives him a reason, and then Burke is not back to avenge Laura. Maybe Laura is not even there, or she's not there in that season, and so Burke and Vicky end up hooking up, and this cures Burke somewhat. And then in the third season, Laura shows up, and Vicky has a rival.
Yeah. I like that. I like
that,
man. That is awesome.
Yeah. So there we go.
I like that. I'm trying to think. What did you think about Elizabeth Collins Stoddard in the revival?
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's fine. If they're not going to give her all the baggage, then she's fancy old lady number 3, high society dame kind of thing, and Gene Simmons is a great actress. Hollywood, similar Hollywood royalty. I think just the casting of Gene Simmons as the latter-day Joan Bennett was a masterstroke. And that's pretty much all she had to do was just show up. Yeah. She's a hell of a Naomi.
Yeah.
I think, and that's what we forget is that in the original series, they cast these actors and then it was like, oh God, we got to figure out something for them to do in 1795. And in a lot of cases, lightning really struck twice. I mean, Louis Edmonds really found himself.
Yeah.
Joel Crothers got to do so more. In this, we got to remember the casting process was them casting 2 parts at the same time. So, Roy Fiennes was going to be Trask. And he's fantastic as Trask. Wow. So, I think she was just as much, who do we want to be the most centering, regal, but logical presence for Barnabas's mom?
Yeah.
Gene Simmons. Yeah.
I really liked Roy. What did you think of Roy Finn's Roger Collins?
I liked him as a character named Roger Collins.
Okay.
Roger Collins is one of my favorite characters on the original show. Louis Edmonds is one of my favorite actors. And for one thing, he never would have worn that hat.
Yeah.
I think we know the hat I'm talking. He looks like Chuck Barris from the Gong Show. When he wore the hat that was slouched way down. Yeah. Really? What happened? There was so much informality in that series. In the pilot, they got it right. Everybody's in suits.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, like Roy's wearing plaid.
Yeah.
Not wearing. What's Roger wearing plaid? What's going on there? Would he lose a bet? And, Roger doesn't own a garment that begins with either T or sweat.
Right.
So that's what I want in my Roger Collins. Roger Collins is Niles Crane. He's that guy. And fops of the world unite. Follow me. Yeah. So I really believe in that. That's Roger Collins was. I love Roy Fiennes, and I can accept him as this David's father.
Yeah.
But I don't. There is a very stagey quality to Louis Edmonds.
There.
And You know who Roger Collins is? John Delancey, Q from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
Bring that guy in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really loved his take on Reverend Trask. He was good as Reverend Trask. He was phenomenal.
And I feel like what I'm watching is a Reverend Trask who's then having to play Roger Collins to kind of like stay on the show at the beginning.
Right. And I do think, when I think of Roger in the revival, I don't see Louis Edmonds as Roger Collins. Again, it's a completely different Roger Collins, in a lot of ways. I always pictured this Roger Collins as somebody who was torn between his ex, Laura, and the woman he was banging, the Maggie Evans. So I always felt there was a lot of confliction with this Roger in the revival. And that's something I'll always take away from it, that if we would have got a season 2, I wonder where they would have taken that character.
Honestly, probably nowhere. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Unless middle-aged women really gravitated to him as a sex symbol on a kind of middle-aged Patrick Stewart level, that would not have been a big ratings trap.
Right.
And I think the character would have done what they did to Louis Edmonds, and he would have been sort of the support character. They only have so much screen time, and if they can give this screen time to Adrian Paul, or if they can give screen time to Roy Thynes, it's like, Roy, we love you. You're a great actor, but put on the tweed and shake your finger at David.
Yeah.
Now the guy in the 2004 revival,
Yes,
he's good.
Yes.
Roy Thynes is good also, but he's a good Roger Collins.
He was a lovable dick. He was good. He was. I love the confrontation, like how he's right in Barnabas's face, almost like, who are you? Like, wait a second. I love that.
Yeah, he's terrific.
The 04 Untitled Pilot has a sense of realism but fun to it. And that's what makes it fun to go and watch on YouTube. And I'm gonna leave a link in the description for people to go watch that one.
I'm glad things finally available on YouTube, because for years it was just these people who'd seen it at a Dark Shadows convention, and that was it. And so I take it you liked that pilot.
I love that pilot. I've watched that thing like 20 times, and I love it.
It's good. I mean, the last line.
Yep.
Just is not great, but the rest of it, I think, holy cow, they condense a lot of story into a short period of time. They do a good job with yet a third type of Willie Loomis.
Yep.
I like how they're expanding the universe, making it a little more Lovecraftian. Collinsports, that's just the seed of weirdness, of which Barnabas is one example.
Yep.
I think the whole cast is dynamite.
I love how Barnabas in the 04 Untitled Pilot is like, why did you bring me back, like, to Willie Loomis? And what he's trying to, that's Ben Stokes. Really, he sees him as Ben Stokes.
Yeah.
And I love, and you get that right away. It's really, really great scene. Is there anything you want to add, Patrick?
I think this is marvelous. Like, I think it's a good way to introduce people to the characters on Dark Shadows. It's a really good Cliff's Notes, because it is a little more contemporary, obviously. Although by now it's, I think, older to us than the original series was to them. But it still is, shot on film and so on. So it's got that going for it. It's a good sort of recruitment tool, and I think based on what it gets right and what it gets kind of, it's a really good opportunity to appreciate with a freshly polished mirror what makes the original series so extraordinary.
I think what really separates the original from the revival is not just length, mind you, but that the fact of the original was original, and when you look at when you look at a sequel to a movie, for say, the sequel does differ from the movie, does differ from the original, but it's not what the original was. It's not that organic feel.
It's very rich. It's
Right,
very
right. It The original is organic in every way, and it's forever going to remain organic. I'm not saying the 91 revival doesn't have great moments. No, it does. And it does have its own feel to it, and that's what makes it different from the original. Certainly, we've talked about that here throughout the podcast, but it's not the original, and it doesn't have that organic feel that the original did have, in my opinion.
well, yeah, and you're intimidated because you're having to capture lightning in a bottle again,
Yeah.
with the original still in your rearview mirror fairly close. You
Yeah.
know, now every time that you would revive it, you're kind of having to start completely from scratch. So there's that breathing room.
If you could, okay, you can change the ending line of the '04 unaired pilot. What are you doing?
Uh, uh, they walk in on Barnabas in the shower, and it's Patrick Duffy, and we're back to that season of Dallas. Um, well, I think instead of that kind of vulgar kind of thing, whatever the car thing is, it goes successfully. Whoever's driving, wherever they're going, they get there, and and all it is that Barnabas gets home and everything's fine. I don't really remember what led to that, but Willie just says, Barnabas, you don't get visitors, but you had a visitor,
Yeah.
really? Yeah. Um, he said her name was Angelique,
Yeah.
and he gets this look on her face,
Mhm.
and he says, well, my God, where did she go? And we just hear this voice from behind him say, I never left.
Yeah. I
Back,
like that.
back.
I like that.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have also seen if when she gets back to Collinwood, she hears her name being called, Victoria, Victoria, and she walks away from the car and she's walking through the woods. She walks towards the Widow's Hill, and she looks down and she sees the broken body of Josette in a weird like Josette. Maybe she sees Josette's ghost standing on the edge, and she sees the fall, and it looks like her, you know. And she sees the broken body of Josette. That would have been a nice feature too.
Yeah. 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 I like all of that.
Is there anything you want to add, my friend?
Uh, no, just tiptoe through the tulips of dark shadows with me.
And make sure you carry the goddamn ukulele.
That's your Barnabas.
Yes, yes.
I
And
need to.
he's the best Barnabas there ever was,
He's gonna
is,
marry Miss Vicky.
or will be.
Miss Vicky. Anyway, yeah. The joke.
Uh, to the people in groups, grow a sense of humor. Seriously, seriously. Patrick, my friend, it is great to hear from you in 2022, my friend.
This is a pleasure. I had such a good time.
It
Thank
is.
you.
I always have a good time bringing you on, my friend. Tomorrow, Butch Rosenbaum stops by for Night of the Living Dead.
You're having Butch on?
Yes,
And,
tomorrow. Yes.
well, thanks a lot. I've seen that movie. I'm gonna have words with you and Butch when this is over. I'm
Oh,
gonna Lucy and trying to get in on Desi's Tropicana show.
people need to bring Patrick McCray more on their channel because this man is golden. You are, my friend. You
I have
are.
a great time, and you're terrific also. And what we do is that you play "Thanks for the Memories," and suddenly my image comes in with a golf club, and I say I was filming a special across the hall, like Bob Hope showing up on the Tonight Show. Think about it. The safe in the cellar.
Right. Link to the O4 Unaired pilot will be in the description box. For Patrick McCray, I'm Joel Sains. Thank you, Patrick, man. You have a great night.